So today we share this Advent gift of joy, and I immediately turn to a book that inspires me daily, the Book of Joy, written by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. These two amazing human beings gathered for the celebration of a very special birthday that they had both had. And they gathered for a week to share their remarkable lives, their deep, rich friendship, and some of their wisdom that they had gathered through life. They created this gorgeous writing for us, for the whole world, the Book of Joy. They begin with an invitation to joy, and they say this: "No dark fate determines the future. We do. Each day and each moment we are able to create and recreate our lives and every quality of human life on our planet. This is the power we wield. Lasting happiness cannot be found in the pursuit of any goal or achievement. It does not reside in fame or fortune. It resides only in the human mind and heart. And it is here that we hope you will find it. The joy that resides in our heart and in our mind." These men are writing these beautiful words about joy and happiness, and yet both of them have experienced very dramatic episodes in their life that could lead them to sadness. Archbishop Desmond Tutu was the first Black to head the Anglican Church in South Africa. He had been imprisoned for years for his work abolishing apartheid. The Dalai Lama for decades has been exiled from his country of Tibet. He now lives in India. And yet together they share their wisdom and the insights that teach us how we might live lives of sustained joy. So here we go. They say joy is a choice. Joy is a practice. So how do we practice joy? We in Unity might step into our practice of affirmations. We might use mantras to help us remember to choose joy. And these two men share that a conscious practice that allows us to live a life of joy includes 8 pillars of joy: perspective, humility, humor, acceptance, forgiveness, gratitude, compassion, and generosity. And we speak of all of those things often. Now we're only going to talk about a few of them today, and we'll save the others for another day, but I want to talk about perspective. The Dalai Lama says that everything in life has many different angles, many ways to see a topic. For me, standing here looking, I see your beautiful faces. I see your smiles. I see your quizzical looks. I see you, and at the back of the chapel, I see that beautiful stained glass window and a clock that reminds me not to talk too long. And then I stand this way, and I have a perspective similar to yours. I see these beautiful stained glass windows. I see the candles and the altar. We see something similar, but I had to turn around, didn't I? I had to change the way this chapel. We were all looking at the chapel, but just from a very different perspective. And when we look at life from all the variety of perspectives, from the bottom, from the top, and from the sides, at least 6 different views of an experience. Oh my gosh. And allow that not to increase our anxiety, but to relax our anxiety, because everything has a multitude of ways of seeing it. That can reduce our stress. It can reduce our worry. It can open us to joy when we acknowledge and allow the myriad of perspectives. We might not understand why things are happening, because goodness gracious, there's a lot happening in the world that I don't understand. But I would like to wave a wand and make some of the hurt and pain go away, right? So we sit in those experiences and allow them to teach us, allow them to grow us in our faith and strength, allow them to cause us to reach deeper into who and what we are and how we can give to the world. The Dalai Lama shares that although losing his country of Tibet was, in his words, a calamity, he was able to see that all that he lost, and also the opportunity that came. Now, we might not think that there was much opportunity in being exiled from his country, never to be able to go back again, but he was able to see that he has enormous popularity across the whole world. He is one of our great spiritual leaders today, and his messages reach millions of people. He fills auditoriums when he shows up to speak. Now, he may not have had that if he stayed in Tibet. May have, may not have. But this is the perspective that the Dalai Lama chooses to take for his exile. Gaining a larger perspective, a bigger picture, causes us to pause, to reflect, step back, and to ask, what is possible now? And we believe that we live in a field of infinite possibility. So no matter what's showing up for us in our lives, and guaranteed, sometimes, as Crystal read, sometimes life just doesn't go the way I thought it would. Anybody else have that experience? Once or twice. But this allows us, and we move beyond our limited awareness of self and our own self-interest. And we move beyond and open to a more worldly view. And he says we must look at any given situation from the front, the back, the sides, the top, and the bottom, at least 6 different angles. This allows us to take a complete look. Imagine the possibilities that are exposed as I look at 6 different ways at everything. That job, that challenging relationship, that thing that causes us worry. A wider perspective gives us a larger canvas on which to create our life, how we will navigate and use each life experience, just as the Dalai Lama saw being exiled as an opportunity. It doesn't eliminate any suffering. It doesn't eliminate any pain of being in exile, but it is also an opportunity. And we have perspective. Look at this sanctuary today. Look at this chapel, the beautiful Christmas tree towering into the eaves. Everything is meticulous and beautiful. And remember last year at this time, there was scaffolding, there was dust. We were in the manse with the projector on the white wall, gathering in the living room and dining room of the manse. what a difference a year makes. What a difference. Everything looks so beautiful in here. I was sitting as the service was beginning and just in awe of how magnificent this space is. So to gain a perspective, we must allow the story to continue. Allow the story to evolve into its completion. Allow the next line, the next chapter, the next volume of the book to be written. And then we can look back and see the beauty, the grace, the gifts when we have that perspective. So perspective is a big deal. They talk about humor. So I asked you, when was the last time you laughed? This morning? This morning? This morning? Oh, great. Good for you. People laughed this morning. That's great. I can enjoy a really good laugh, especially if it's on myself. And yet I can become very serious and very focused on a task as well. And the Archbishop and Desmond Tutu reminds me that laughter and humor are vitally important to feel joy. You can't be grumpy and laughing. This is not possible. And he says, when we learn to take ourselves slightly less seriously, then it's a very great help. We can see the ridiculous in us. Humor is our ability to manage stress and the unknown. When we can laugh at what we don't see coming in our future, when we can be ready to laugh with the experiences, it can reduce the stress. It can reduce the energy in a stressful moment. And my son grew to be 6'2" at a young age, and I'm not. And so here there was this very tall young teenager that I needed to guide and sometimes discipline, and he had some challenges with managing his anger. And boy, I wasn't sure exactly what to do with that, because he was so big and tall and I wasn't. And I learned if I could make Casey laugh, that the whole situation changed. If I could get him to laugh, then that energy of anger just dissipated. And there was my sweet son back. My sweet, kind son was back to his real self that had been covered in anger. So I learned to use that, and I could do some ridiculous things to get him to laugh. And of course, it works today still. When we laugh, that energy flows out. And of course, it's not funny if you don't know if that eviction notice is coming the day after Christmas, or if an unemployment notice will be given, or the myriad of concerns that come up as we live adult lives. That process of adulting can be daunting, but the choice is ours, always, to live in fear or to live in faith. Cynthia mentioned that today in our talk, our conversation time in the Mass. Do we come from fear or do we come from faith? Hopefully, in this time of Advent, we've talked about these gifts enough that we're moving in faith. And Desmond Tutu goes on to share that even still, we can find a moment of laughter. We become less malicious. We become less callous. When we're able to laugh through life's cruelty and uncertainty, we find laughter to be our saving grace. So remember to laugh. If you find yourself short on something to laugh about, give me a call. I know you'll laugh at some of my life's funniest moments, and I have a lifetime of them. I could tell you about the time I drove through town with a gas hose hanging out of my car. Yep. Or the afternoon I spent sitting in an empty box. Or carrying my kayak through a car wash. I have a lifetime of funny stories. See, I made you laugh already. And I'm guessing that we all do. I'm guessing that we all have happenstances in life that are really worthy of laughter. Yes. And through their dialogue, the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu take care to point out that our laughter should never be at the expense of another, nor should it be disparaging ourselves. It's always just for the joy of laughter. Humor is great at bringing people together. And Psalm 126:2 teaches us, then our mouth was filled with laughter, and our tongue with shouts of joy. And they said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. So allow ourselves to be joy, to be humorous. And let's talk about acceptance. Acceptance should not be confused with resignation or giving up. Rather, acceptance is acknowledging what is happening. Just the facts. Just the facts of what is happening. That's it. No more, no less. And both Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama share this thought. We are meant to live in joy. It doesn't mean that life will always be easy or painless. It means that we can turn our face into the wind and accept that this storm we must pass through. We cannot succeed by denying what exists. The acceptance of reality is the only place from which change begins. You know, there's a saying, what you resist persists. So if we resist and push back against what's happening, we can make it stronger. But if we meld into what is happening, we don't have to give up. We don't have to resign to anything. But we can say, this is what's happening right now. And from that place of acceptance, from yielding to what is, the energies can begin to change. We can then influence the experience with our affirmations. We can influence the experience with our thoughts of what we wish to see and experience. Acceptance of reality is where the change begins for a new reality. And then there's forgiveness. If you visit this YouTube, you will find excerpts of this book on YouTube because it was a week-long dialogue between the two men. And they talk about forgiveness. And they talk about how important forgiveness is. And they also acknowledge that forgiveness doesn't mean that you forget. Nor is forgiveness saying that what a person did is okay. Forgiveness is just, it's standing firmly against wrongdoing, and it protects them. It protects the person who is being harmed, and it protects the person who's doing the harming. It eliminates retaliation. So when we're hit, what do we often want to do? Hit back. When we're wronged, we often want to correct it by doing wrong. You know, when we feel transgressed, our natural response is hitting back. That's a human response. So in this video, they talk about the importance of forgiveness, and they're saying that sometimes people think that forgiveness means you're weak, that you're giving up. But that's not so. Forgiveness is a sign of strength, that you're not going to engage in what's happening. And they agree that it's hilarious to see them because in this video, they lean into each other and Desmond Tutu says, people who don't believe forgiveness just haven't tried it. Yeah. And they lean into each other like two schoolboys and giggle at the thought of people not trying forgiveness. And about generosity. In their laughter, which is common throughout this whole week-long dialogue, the Archbishop says, I hope that people recognize in themselves that it is when we are closed in on ourselves that we tend to be miserable. It is when we grow through self-forgetfulness we discover we are filled with joy. When we are closed, we can't feel the joy. It's when we are open and allow that joy to flow. Generosity flows from a seed of compassion. In November, we put a sign-up sheet in the back for people to be generous with the community and to give Christmas gifts. People did so with joy, out of compassion. When we look at those who might have less, might need a little, it's compassion that wants to alleviate any pain or suffering from another. And we do that through our generosity. Generosity is the spiritual law of circulation in action. And the Dead Sea is a perfect example of how the law of circulation must have an inlet and an outlet. When the water flows into the Dead Sea, there's an inlet, but there's not an outlet. So it becomes stagnant and salty. And when we're not living these pillars of joy, when we're not living in generosity, we can become pretty salty too. So it's this generosity that allows joy to be seated in us, knowing that when we give, we all feel good when we give, don't we? Whether it's our volunteer work, how many people feel better, feel like they gain more from their volunteer activities than they ever give? I see your heads shaking. Yes. So joy is something that we can cultivate in our lives. Just as we practice meditation, we practice gratitude, and the many spiritual practices that you all use, joy is cultivated by practice. And so we must make room in ourselves to allow joy. Making room for joy expands our capacity to feel it, to live it, and to share those underlying experiences that are our joy. So what brings joy to you today?
Being here.
Being here, yes. What brings joy to you today?
You.
You! Back at you! What brings joy?
The privilege to play this piece.
The privilege to play.
The
Yes.
beautiful decorations.
Yes, the beauty of this space. All of these are joyful things, and they lighten our spirit. And those underlying experiences are the gratitude, the forgiveness, the generosity, and the compassion. Now, the lengthiest chapter in this book of joy is the final chapter. And it's 40 pages long of joy practices. So they even give us ways that we can practice joy in our lives. It's a book I'd recommend and live by. So living this week as we are in preparation for the birth of that Christ consciousness within each of us, within each of our hearts, let us take these gifts of Advent, the faith, the peace, the love, and today let us take the joy. Let us take it and embed it in our hearts. Let us take it and make them conscious practices in our everyday life and allow them to be the cornerstones of how we live. And remember always to let all you do be done with with love.